Hello, I am Sarah Whitlock, and I'm completing this video for EDU 583 Linguistics at Georgetown College under the direction of Dr. Westerlund. Today I'm going to be talking about a student that I've been observing, and he is an ELL student currently receiving services, both push in and pull out. He has a very low composite score on his access testing. It's 2.2, which puts him at the emergent level according to the WIDA standards. With that, we are going to be looking at different strategies his teachers can use to help accommodate his needs and to push him into the next level, as well as help him understand and feel more confident with speaking English and communicating with others. We're going to look and evaluate at his writing samples and his can-do descriptors to help him. So a little bit of background on Edgar is that he moved here from Honduras about 4 years ago. He came into kindergarten completely illiterate in regards to sounds or even any sounds in his L1 language he didn't know of. He didn't know how to read. His communication was very low. He's very shy and tended to shy away from any sort of eye contact or direction from anybody. As years have gone on, he is still struggling about the same. He has very little friends, and he has one sister that he has moved here with that he talks with a little bit, his parents say, from home, but once again, the communication between home and school is very little because the parents are also mainly Spanish speaking. They have moved around a lot because they are living with people that will basically take them in wherever they can, and if they need to move, then the Soul family, Edgar's family, will also be moving with them. So let's start with his composite score. Since he has a 2.2, he is in the emergent stage according to the WIDA standards. And with this, the standards break down into 4 different categories: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The first one I want to go through is his reading, because that tends to be what he's struggling with the most. He, at this point, or at the end of this stage that he's at, should be able to identify the who, what, when, where questions and realize that they are questions that he can ask to try to discover things with a partner. He should be able to isolate them in a narrative text and realize that these are question statements. With writing, he should be able to list positive and negative effects of events in an informational or narrative text. He's still struggling greatly with that. He has a hard time differentiating any sort of categories, positive, negative, whatever it may be. He's struggling a lot with still, which lets me know he's at the beginning of the emergent phase. With listening, he is having trouble staying connected and staying on top of whatever or whoever is asking him anything, because he isn't able to follow along with the language being spoken to him. And then when we talk about talking orally, he is not able to give reasons as to why he thinks the way he thinks. He's able to answer yes or no questions and maybe 1 or 2 word answers, but he's not able to actually tell why, or you bring in statements that support his reasoning or his answer. He is still working on putting things in sequential order, especially with informational text. He's able to do the first thing and the last thing, but he is not able to pull out the second, third, the middle, the bulk of the order of things. He's still struggling with going back in the text and finding that information. Once again, he is not able to respond with his opinion more than just yes or no as to why he thinks the way he thinks. So with all of this, these are all the can-do descriptors of the 4 domains, and he's able to do maybe half of them, and he is in the emergent stage. So he's in the very beginning. He's only able to do half. So this tells me that we really need to go back with him and start almost from the beginning and go really slow, which is perfectly fine with him. One thing that we can start with is letting him speak or respond in whatever language he chooses. So if that means having him write a response and you asking him to write you a response as to why he has an opinion for a certain question that you ask, allow him to write that back to you in Spanish. That can be translated. You can also get a good grasp of if he knows academically what is going on. And it's not just a language barrier, or you can see if it is academically and a language barrier, which you can address as well. Another great option for him would be to connect pictures with words, both English and Spanish, so that he's able to see sequential order and not have to struggle with the reading part of it, but he can look at the pictures and have different 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 that he can match pictures up to as far as what happened first, middle, and last. And then you can go back and add in the Spanish words to that. Like this happened first, this was second, this was in the middle, this was last, but in his own language, and then match up to the English version so he can make all 3 of those connections at once. Lastly, or in addition to, he can also benefit from speaking and having a peer with him at all times, maybe somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that he can connect to and feel like he's not so alone. A lot of the problems with Edgar is his shyness and inability to really come out of his shell because he's not sure how. So if he were able to get a shoulder partner that he could communicate with on both academics and on a social friend level, that may allow him to feel more confident in what he has to say, even if it does have mistakes, in it as he's learning. He could still feel comfortable with it if he knew he had a friend. As a teacher, I would suggest using materials that are authentic and meaningful to him. This means getting something in Spanish that came from his culture, his background, that he's familiar with. I know that his family has always done a lot of farming, and so he's probably really familiar with that, and he's familiar with the ins and outs of it. So finding material could be informational text, it could be a fictional text, whatever it may be. He's able to grasp onto it a little bit more because he understands it. So finding those materials that are predictable for him, once again, is a confidence boost. Something that provokes his imagination, something that allows him to pique interest so that he wants to read more. This can also be materials in Spanish versus English. You can switch back and forth. Show him those connections once again between the 2 languages. And he will subconsciously start to learn the language without even realizing it. Another accommodation that could be made in the classroom is to create a blog for the family and have this translated into Spanish so that the parents, when he is home with his parents, understand what's going on in Edgar's class. They know what is due, they know what assignments he needs, they know what he's struggling with and what he's doing great with, so that there's not a big language gap and a big fallout between communication with school and home. If that occurs, you're going to find Edgar slipping more because there's no backup coming from home where it should be. When watching videos, it would be really helpful to turn on closed captioning for him, whether it be Spanish or English, so that he can follow along and he can start, if he can't read very well, he can start to pick up on it, especially if he's looking at the picture, if he's looking at the video, he's seeing the lips move, he's able to connect it with the words down at the bottom of the screen. That will all start to come the more he sees it and the more he's able to make those connections. As long as that connection is there, he's going to be able to grasp his new language over time. he'll begin to do it subconsciously, so because his interest for learning will have peaked through the various texts and the accommodations being made without him even realizing. So that would be wonderful. All of these tips and accommodations will be helpful for any English language learner. So I hope you all take them to heart, and hopefully it works for you. Thanks for watching.